Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Today is going to be a little bit of a different video. It is still a Battlegrounds video, but it is not a Battlegrounds gameplay video exactly. We will be talking about the upcoming patch, and Blizzard has decided to give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek through my channel, and we are going to be going over some of the new content and exclusive card reveals. But they're not constructed cards, they're Battlegrounds cards. They're doing Battlegrounds card reveals now, and I'm actually really excited about this. So what do we have? In the upcoming Battlegrounds patch, they are going to be introducing a brand new mechanic. There's going to be some new heroes, and each hero is going to have their own buddy card. Now, these buddy cards are cards that you get just by playing the game. Now, the actual precise details of how that works is something we're going to have to really get a, hands-on experience when the patch is live. This is patch 22.2. I think it's coming pretty soon. Right now, I'm just going to give you guys my take on these cards and kind of how they work. So before we get into that, the buddy system, basically you get a card, and this can happen 3 times throughout the course of a match, and you basically build kind of like a super meter. It's like the buddy meter, and you do so by doing a number of tasks. The first one is dealing damage, popping enemy shields, entering combat, and winning or tying a combat. Now, to which degree and how these work, I don't really know. Could you have like a 300 attack dragon that just like nukes something like crazy and then bam, meter's fully powered? Possibly. I don't know. So I don't know exactly the pacing of this, but Blizzard has let me know a rough guideline on what to expect. So the first buddy you can expect to get around Tavern 2, which is between turns 5 and 9. The second time you get a buddy is typically Tavern 3, which is between turns 6 and 11. And the third and final buddy that you're going to get is between turns 7 and turns 12. That's a pretty wide range, so again, it'll have to be something that we iron out and get a feel for when the patch is actually live. All right, on to card reveals. They gave me the buddies for 5 of the existing heroes in the game right now, and you guys can kind of see how these work. Talk about them a little bit. The first hero is Elise. Elise's buddy is Junior Navigator, which is at the start of your turn, get a recruitment map and reduce the cost of your maps by 1. Now, this is something that's going to happen constantly. It's constant value and constant discounts. And the longer you can push actually using those maps, the more value you get. So it's a very strong risk or reward gameplay, and honestly, that's really the essence of Battlegrounds, at least in my opinion. And the golden version, this is if you choose to actually have these on the board. Keep in mind, this is not a minion with a minion typing. It's really hard to buff this. So if you are like Giga Greed, okay, and you go and have the 2 on the board, and then you get the triple, you basically get to have it in a smaller package on the board. You don't have to take up 2 spots on the board. You can take up 1. It really is like a risk or reward situation. Playing these, you obviously get the effect twice over, and I imagine you get the actual triple effect. I imagine, no confirmation, but I imagine that you will also get the triple effect, maybe getting like a Tavern 6 or a Tavern 5 card, because I imagine by the time you get the third one that you're fairly high Tavern tier. So is this a very good card? Yeah, I think it's actually a pretty good card. You're constantly getting those recruitment maps. That's the essence of Elise, and I'm not too surprised to see that Elise, which is, I think, a slightly below average hero, get a pretty strong buddy, relatively speaking. Well, let's see what we're comparing it to. Next is Reno. So Reno's getting his buddy, of course, and Reno's buddy is the Senior Tomb Diver. It's a 7/3, so it's an offensive stat line, which is really good for taverning up quickly because you can use the high attack minions to not take too much damage when you lose, and when you go level up really, really fast, you probably are going to lose. But losing versus losing less life is usually a nice little detail. So the death rattle is to make your rightmost minion golden. Now, this is a death rattle, which means that it is only something that can trigger in combat. So it's basically like boost the stats and possibly the ability, but just for the combat alone. However, There is a card, and I imagine it's still going to be in the game after this next patch, but again, I don't know that for sure. Terragosa keeps in-combat effects, so it's possible that this will synergize heavily with dragons, and it's possible that Reno, which apparently is a dragon we found out in recent times, actually has some very deliberate dragon synergy through Terragosa. Wouldn't that be cool? I think so. And the golden version is, of course, you make your 2 rightmost minions golden. I think by the time that you have your third buddy going, that this is probably not going to be that relevant, but honestly, who knows? And then we have Sir Finley. Sir Finley is the hero that gets to discover a hero power from another Battlegrounds hero at the start of the game. And as you can imagine, his buddy is very similar to that. Add the buddy of your hero power to your hand. So the craziness that ensues when you play Finley kind of continues on through the game. Yeah, I guess we'll have to see. Rafam, one of my favorite heroes, he has the Loyal Henchman, which importantly is a 6/6, which is a very strong stat line. So after you kill a second minion each combat, get a plain copy of it. Now, this is not quite as strong as the hero power, because the hero power is guaranteed to actually occur, well, if you kill something. This, not only do you need to kill a second something, which given is not that hard, but it's certainly harder than using the original Rafam hero power. Your opponent needs to first have 2 minions, and then you need to kill 2 minions. But that will probably happen unless you're much weaker than your opponent, or he has an enormous advantage or taunt standing in your way. But another bit of a detail here is that this card has to be alive by the time that your opponent's second card dies. So there is going to be some consistency issues with doing that every turn, but nevertheless, I imagine this is a pretty powerful effect, not just because it is a powerful effect, evidently by reading the card and comparing it to Rafam's hero power. I think it's also a powerful effect because usually opponents, when playing against Rafam, will consider their first minion that will likely die. They try not to feed Rafam too much power, basically. Now, my argument is that while it can be pretty easy to not give Rafam quite the choicest of choice minions when combat starts, I would argue that it's really hard to predict which minion dies second. So you might get a better card than your opponent might be wanting to give you with this power, though again, it probably won't trigger quite every turn because this has to be alive. And the golden version, again, this is Giga Greed. You get 2 copies of it. This is actually really sick because it'll make it very easy to get further triples. And honestly, I think I would consider having 2 of these on the board leading up to the tripling of one. This is probably one of the best ones. And finally, I have the Afk Buddy. The Afk Buddy is the snack vendor. At the end of your turn, give your tavern 3 minions +1/+1, but it is a tavern 2 minion, so it does not buff itself. When it becomes golden, its effect is essentially doubled, but it is still a tavern 2 minion. It does not buff itself, so it will be pretty difficult to keep these on the board long term. But it's a pretty interesting effect. I think it might push Afk to maybe go to Tavern 3 and stay on Tavern 3. Right now, there are some legitimate Tavern 3 strategies, usually featuring the Deflecto bot, that is the mech with the refreshing Divine Shield, and Terragosa. Terragosa is pretty easy to buff, but the Deflecto bot is not quite as easy to buff. So getting a consistent buff for it might actually push Afk to move on into those strategies. You have a little bit of Quillbore stuff as well, but in my experience, you want to level to 6 pretty quickly if you're trying to go endgame on a Quillbore build. Overall, awesome stuff with the buddies, and I want to thank Blizzard for giving me the opportunity to share these cards with you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I imagine we'll have quite a lot of fun when this patch finally hits.